What's going on, Brian?
How are you doing today, Chad?
Pretty good. It's a new episode of Roundabout with Brian and Chad. We're coming to you. You want to tell them where we're coming from?
Well, your meeting, we're recapping the meeting from May 5th, which is Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
So we are broadcasting from one of our fine Mexican restaurants in Hernando because we don't have enough of them. And so we decided we would do this podcast from there to celebrate the Cinco de Mayo Alderman meeting.
Yeah. And where are we coming from?
We're at Guadalajara.
The
best. I won't say the best. There's a couple good ones. Well, no, this is my go-to, but there are some other good ones.
Sure.
So, but the staff here is really friendly. So, and they're allowing us to do this today. So,
that's right.
Interesting meeting last night for a short agenda meeting. There was a lot going on and a lot discussed last night. Pretty interesting. What's your take on the meeting last night, Chad?
Well, we were there about 35 minutes. But had a lot of big issues, I guess, that were talked about. I'm sure you got some notes over there we're going to go over. But, we're in that time of year where we're about halfway through the budget year. So we got to start looking at things that way and hiring some employees and doing different things, just, taking care of the city business and paying the docket of claims, which is basically the bills of the city. And so, one of our May meetings.
Well, and we started off, we are talking about the Cinco de Mayo meeting, and we're in Guadalajara, and you had a little back and forth this week on your political Facebook page with the agenda with Barb. I won't say last name, but Barb, and
Well, let's. Barb's not a real person. Brian,
well,
okay, let's not pretend.
Well, I did send Barb a message to see if they wanted to on Facebook to see if they wanted to join in on one of the podcasts, but she was accusing y'all of going on trips and having a lot of drinks. So I was assuming that y'all would have, the best thing you could have done last night was have had a margarita machine at the meeting since it was Cinco de Mayo.
Well, so just some background. I've since the day one I've been elected alderman. Every time we have a board meeting, I post the agenda on Facebook. And she took some issue, and I don't have a problem with her raising her concern, but it's some person who betrays to be an elderly woman.
Are we sure it's a her?
I don't know. Some person portrays to be an elderly woman named Barb. Okay, Hollingsworth. I'll say her last name.
Okay,
that's not a real person. Okay,
we know that for a fact.
We know that for a fact.
We do. Okay,
we do that. There's no record of that person. She's not registered to vote in DeSoto County. There's no record of her ever having a phone bill or anything. That's not a real person.
Okay.
Okay. So there's no, and whoever that is, if they want to, post anonymously, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But don't pretend that you've almost fell at the baseball field and broke your hip because you're an old woman. That's just,
right. I saw that post.
That's ridiculous. Okay?
Yes, I did see that post.
But I think she did raise a concern that I'd be happy to address if you want to, Brian. I mean,
that was my next thing. Is her concern was this Destination Downtown conference that's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, coming up, where it was on there to vote to pay for the alderman and the mayor and Gia Matheny to all make that trip if they so desired. I know Ben said he couldn't make it. I think you said you couldn't make it. There was somebody else last night at the meeting that said they couldn't make it.
I'm not going to be able to go. I mean, I'm not sure who is going. So one thing first we need to address. So the way the agenda read, it was a little misleading. I think it basically said that the mayor, the Board of Aldermen, and Gia Matheny were approved to go to this conference. I think it was insinuating that we were all going to go to this conference. Right. That's never the case. And I think the mayor explained, I asked a question because Barb asked me to ask the question. This person who's Barb, what is this conference? And I asked the mayor, and if you want to go back and look at the meeting, he made several remarks about what they do at the conference. Basically, we're part of Mississippi Main Street, which is basically our economic development downtown area. The Chamber of Commerce is a Main Street Chamber of Commerce. They're associated with that.
Well, and Chip did a good job. I'm interrupting you, but he did a really good job explaining that we're part of that Mississippi Main Street, and we do get funds from them sometimes, and that they're a part of this group, and that's why that it's a trip that somebody needs to probably go on, whether all of us need to go or so all of y'all need to go.
And if you saw what I put on Facebook, Brian, they were insinuating these are, taxpayer-funded vacations, and we spend, excess amount of money on different trips. Just so we can have it here, and I put it on Facebook. The city budgets $8,000 a year for the mayor and the Board of Aldermen travel.
Well, who wants to take a vacation to Baton Rouge?
Yeah, no, I don't. And if I was really smart about it, I'd wait till next year and catch it like the Ole Miss LSU game if we were really trying to do something like
Right.
that. But, so you're talking about if one or two people go, maybe $700,000, 700 or $1,000, maybe a little more. So it's not at the end of the day, it's not a lot of money. I do understand that when we do spend taxpayer money, we should, be responsible and be good stewards of that money.
And no problem asking the question either.
Sure,
Like, I have no issue with Barb asking that question because I don't necessarily disagree with her because we talked about the Washington trip a few episodes ago where I was like, we keep going to Washington, but we can't even get our interstate fixed.
That's right. That's right. And again, some people may I think there is some value in having professional development and networking with people and having conversations with other cities across this is, I think, a Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama association or a group that they're going with. So you're seeing states all over cities all over those areas. So, certainly somebody could make the argument that's a waste of money, right? But cities all over the country do that. It's not just Hernando.
Well, I think we waste a lot of money, but the way Mayor Chip explained it last night, I was like, okay, that makes sense that one or two people probably need to go if we get money from Mississippi Main Street for different things we're having around town and on the square. And, Chip did a roll call vote on that.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Kitchens did pause. He took a minute to pause before he answered, and he did vote yes on it.
He didn't see I poked him on the table.
You poked him?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, the only no vote was from Alderman McClendon. Yes. She did vote no on approving that trip.
And to be fair to her, she has been probably the biggest critic of travel and expenses and things and training. She's the one who really wants us to explain when we get back. We explain what we did at those different sessions and things. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with that.
Well, and what I did notice is the mayor must listen to this podcast because he called a roll call vote on the agenda last night to approve the minutes from the last meeting. And he explained why he called a roll call vote on that, because that was one of my questions, is why sometimes he does a roll call and sometimes it's just, hey, everybody yay or nay. But he said he did that because he wasn't sure that he couldn't remember if everybody had been at the last meeting or not.
Sure, yeah.
But Kitchens did vote yes for the trip. McClendon voted no. And then y'all went in the other things that were on there. And by the way, I did the math. It was a short agenda.
Hey, here we go.
A short agenda, but on that short agenda, we had over $135,000 in expenditures that were on the agenda to approve. $135,000 in one meeting on an agenda that had like 7 or 8 things on it total.
Well, the docket claims was over $3 million.
Well, but I'm saying of new spending that was not already pre-approved.
That's right.
Now, we did give the ARC, which is you can probably explain that better. I can. They asked for a $25,000 donation, and Chip said the reason that was on there that way is because that's what they asked for, but we commonly give them $2,500, which is in our budget for that type stuff, and that was approved to give them $2,500 last night.
Yeah, so the ARC, they're a group. I think Rebecca Treadway is the executive director, and they deal with special needs kids, provide therapy and things, I believe is kind of their mission statement. And that we give them money every year. And typically, Brian, we go over this in the budget season, September, October time period, and we pass what we're going to do and give that out. And I don't know if they forgot or they got busy or whatever. They didn't bring their request to us. We didn't give them any funding. And I think the mayor indicated that they got a letter or something asking for $25,000. Our total donation budget is $25,000. So that's probably not what we're going to do. But we gave them $2,500. And so
well, it's
a good cause.
Yeah, the city needs to do some of that, but yeah, within reason.
But also, just so people know, we give Healing Hearts money. We give the Hernando Band money. There's a bunch of different groups we give. The library gets a little bit of extra money from us.
The Couch Family Foundation is going to put in a request next year.
Okay.
But, we gave them $2,500. And, the reason I'm bringing up the money is because we do have the downfall, the shortfall that we've discussed on this podcast before. And so I think there are a lot of people in town that are paying attention to these trips.
That's good.
To Louisiana. They're taking account of what we're doing money-wise right now and paying attention a little bit more than normal times.
And I want to say, and we've talked about this before on here and other podcasts or whatever, is the $2.6 million projected deficit or whatever. I think that was it was maybe a little exaggerated, but that was the utility fund, which is a separate fund.
And we don't have to rehash that anymore.
From the general fund. The general fund, actually, we're in pretty good shape because we've received some additional sales tax money that we didn't budget because there were some areas in Nesbitt that were not being credited to Hernando. We got a big chunk of money. I don't know if we talked about it on here or not, Brian, a big chunk of money about 2 months ago, and we still receiving some additional revenue that we didn't think. So we probably running about about $1 million surplus of what we revenue wise, what we initially thought. So, and we still should be very good stewards of people's monies, but there is no financial issue with our general fund whatsoever.
Right. Well, and then we got into really the meat of the meeting after all that came up. And I'm not sure, I don't know that it was even announced who the company was that was up next that spoke. They had a couple of gentlemen that spoke about Kirkendall Park and some other things and some lighting there and some stuff at the new Renaissance Park. They were basically the remainder of the meeting. But the first thing they brought up was, I think we got a grant for $200,000, but they were coming back 2 years later because we still haven't done the lights at Kirkendall Park and saying, yeah, the city was putting in $175,000, but now we need another $104,000. So over $100,000 miscalculation is the way it came across to me in the meeting and listening to that. And I'm like, hold on, we're $104,000 short on a project.
Yeah. So the company used to be called PATH, PATH. I think they've recently changed their name, but in 2024, I think middle of 2024, the parks director and Gia Matheny found a grant to, and this is I probably should have brought some notes. I'm just talking on top of my head, but basically a federal grant to do some lighting around Kirkendall Park I think the word they used last night is to activate that field, but also do some, there's a lot of people that walk there. We can practice at night, practice in the mornings, early in the mornings. And so they found a grant. It's a 50-50 match grant.
Up to $200,000.
Well, it's a $400,000 and they'll match 50%, which would be $200,000. And I'm not speaking for them, but I think what happened is they knew the grant cap was $400,000 or $200,000 from each party. And so they were trying to keep that under $400,000. Not saying that's the right thing to do, or not saying that they're trying to get over on us or whatever, but they made that decision to do that. And now fast forward 2 years, we got awarded the grant, right?
Yeah.
And it's time to start work.
And we're $100,000 short.
Well, no. They've actually really done their homework now.
And that's where I'm going. I'm headed down that path.
And hey, we projected the budget to be $376,000, but it's really $480,000.
Right. And I'm going to give Alderman Kitchens credit. He started pushing back right away on that last night and going, how come that wasn't, and the word assumption and assume was used a whole lot by those guys last night, whole lot. And I'm like, well, we assume this. I was like, an assumption, you might miss by a few $1,000s. You don't miss by $100,000. And I think that's where Alderman Kitchens was trying to go with that last night is, hey, this should have been discovered on the front end before we approved all this. And they kept saying that there were assumptions made and things like that. And Alderman Kitchens kept pushing back. This went on for quite a while last night.
Well, they assumed that because the lights and so what year did you graduate here in High School? 94, 95?
94.
So that's where y'all played football, right? Or are you at the new school?
I was at the new school.
So that's formerly the used to be Hernando High School's football field.
Right.
And so they assumed that there was conduit connecting all those light fixtures, but that's not the way they did it in 1975 or whatever when they put those lights up.
But in Alderman Kitchen was like, that's something you probably should have looked at 2 years ago.
That wouldn't take a whole lot of work. I agree.
And so I agreed with him 100% on the pushback.
I think he spoke and asked some questions. I think most people on the board were asking the same questions.
Yeah.
He was the first one to speak, so we let him ask those questions. But
well, and then they talked about that there's been price increases in the last 2 years as well.
Sure.
And we got a little background noise with the restaurant.
We got a crowd, man. We're famous, Brian. We're famous.
But one of the things was when they talked about price increases, I made myself a note. I was like, they were using the word assumed a whole lot. And I was like, well, price increases should be assumed to take place too over a 2 year period. Most things don't go down in price. Most things over years go up in price. So I would have assumed that would have been assumed.
Listen, well, I tell you what, look at you, Slick Willie over there. Assume this. But yes, there certainly is some questions with that project, Brian.
Well, and
we did budget $176,000 for that project, which would be the city's matching. And so the question in front of us, and I think what we'd end up deciding to do is, hey, y'all take a pencil to this and see if this is still a feasible project. We're not going to give you another $100,000. Okay. So can you come back and make that more? Where it's a $10,000 project, additional funds, or a $15,000 project, additional funds? And I can't speak for the board. I don't know where everybody is on that. I think that's a lot more reasonable to think. But if it's $100,000 at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to do that project. So
yeah. Well, and Alderman Kitchens even said, well, if we're doing this, shouldn't we put this back out to rebid? And boy, I don't know if you could tell in the meeting live, but on TV, I was like, man, they started backtracking real quick when he started talking about putting it out for bid again.
Yeah, so I asked him, this is something we should do, put an RFP, which is a request for proposal out, and that's where you would actually bid it out to contractors.
Right.
And
where somebody else could jump in, where right now they're the only game in town because they've been awarded the contract.
Well, they were awarded what we call RFQ, which is a request for qualifications. They were picked to be the best qualified to do it, and they basically run the project for us. That's another way to do it. We've done several projects with like the ARC, not the ARC, AERC with Doug Thornton's group. We've done them projects with them like that. And so anyway, I mean, it's something certainly worth talking about, but I think there was some social media attention to that. We're not going to spend $100,000 additional money on that.
Well, and again, I'm going back to Alderman Kitchens. He also had another good question: is why are we spending the money at Kirkendall Park when we're running generator lights still at some of the soccer fields, and the soccer fields actually generate revenue for the city?
Sure. Well, and
I was like, that's a great question. Why not take care of
I'll
makes you money first?
Jared, I guess, didn't answer it properly, but the whole reason we're doing this at Kirkendall Park is because the way the grant money was awarded and the grant was accepted, it has to be some type of walkability opportunity. And that's why that was selected. Obviously, the soccer field needs lights. There's 2 fields that's not lit. Okay, myself and Alderman Piper, Alderman Kitchens, we have kids that play out there. We want that soccer complex to be the best it can be, and we spent a lot of money out there, $2 million over the last 5 years out there.
Right.
And the last lighting, which is those 2 big fields, is about $800,000. We've already got prices on that. And I hope to do that at some point in the next 2 or 3 years, maybe longer. But that's not possible. This grant does not offer opportunities for that type of field lighting at the soccer fields. That's why that's what's not considered.
Okay. Fair enough, because I thought that was a good question, because I was like, that makes sense. Why would we not take care of the places that are making us money before we spend money on something that's not making us money?
Yeah.
So, and ultimately, Ben Piper made a motion to table the issue with the $100,000 lights. And I think I was doing something and I was trying to just listen to voices. I think Bruce seconded that motion.
He did.
I think it was Bruce. I was, like I said, I was just going by voices because I wasn't watching at this point. And it was a unanimous vote to table it. So that has been tabled until, do we know when that's coming back around?
In 2 weeks, we're going to take a look at it.
Take a look at it again.
And you didn't mention, but one of the questions that Kitchens had, I think several of us had, but Kitchens brought it up. He spoke about it, is because it's such a big increase, would that not trigger us to put it out for request RFP or RFQ again, because it's $100,000 difference?
Right.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to anybody. So the attorney, I think, was going to look at that and give us an answer in 2 weeks.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
That'll be the May
19th
meeting.
Yeah.
That's my anniversary, 25th wedding anniversary.
And
you're going to make me have to watch a Board of Aldermen meeting on my 25th wedding anniversary.
You got a birthday coming up too, big guy.
Monday, I will be in Annapolis, Maryland for the week. We're going to be up there at the Naval Academy for the next weeks, leaving Saturday and going up there to watch my son do the Herndon Monument climb. And most of y'all probably don't know what that is, but it's pretty cool. It will be on YouTube, on several different YouTube channels. Easy to find if you put in Herndon Monument. Next Wednesday at 7 a.m. our time here, and it usually lasts about 2.5, 3 hours, where they have to climb a monument at the end of their plebe, which is their freshman year. And once they climb that monument, they are no Cleves no more. So kind of a big deal for me that I'm excited to go up there and watch him do that.
That's a great part of great part of the country. And I don't know if we've mentioned on here your son being in the Naval Academy. That's a great thing and a tremendous accomplishment. We have I know there's several kids in DeSoto County. It's in different military academies. I know Alderman Flores in South Haven, his son's, I think, graduating here quick
from the Naval Academy.
Getting what's it called? You get
commissioned.
Yes, and
then he's going to be a Navy pilot, and then we will overlap with them. I talked to Raymond Flores, the South Haven Alderman, as you said, the other day, and we will overlap a couple days with them in Annapolis this coming week. But
that's awesome, man.
But yeah, and then so I'll be out of town for a weekend, but I'll be back to do the podcast for the next meeting.
What are we going to do without you?
I'm sure there's plenty of people that will be happy I'm gone for a while.
What else you got, man? You told me you had tough questions, man.
Well, no, I'm going back. So after that got tabled,
sure.
Then you came up with, there was 2 change orders by the same group that were over at Renaissance Park. One was for $4,000 and change, and the other one was for like $1,600 and change. And those were ultimately approved, the things that needed to be added to. And the only dissenting vote on those was Alderman Kitchens. And I don't know.
I forgot to poke him.
I haven't talked to him on this, but my assumption was, let's see, I'm going back to that word assume, since it was used so much in the meeting last night.
Hold on a second.
Fair enough. But the reason I would assumed he voted against those 2 minor changes was because it was the same group proposing those that had just asked for the extra $104,000, and out of principle, he wasn't going to vote for any more money to be spent on anything but that group right now. I don't know. I haven't talked to him, but that would be what I assumed.
All right, two things there. One, I think we got to explain to our listeners and, which, just to let you know, Brian, we got about over 600 listens in our last episode. We're trying to get to 1,000, okay?
Well, we need some people to start emailing us some questions.
But anyway, a change order. What is a change order? So a change order is we signed a contract with a construction company to build the Renaissance Park, which is baseball fields. There's a walking trail. We're doing a lot of things out there at Renaissance Park. Anyway, and so a change order is when we discover something, hey, we want to change something in the project. And typically that means, as you know, I mean, you're in the real estate world, and you're building a house or something, you add something to the project. And that usually costs additional funds. And sometimes there's a change order that doesn't cost anything. You just change, this to there. But typically you're adding something you forgot, you didn't think about when you're getting ready to do your plans, and you put it out for proposal or whatever. And so the change order we were asking for was to put internet at the concession stand at the baseball fields we're building out there, the 4 baseball fields, and also at the, hopefully eventually be a water splash pad and what's the word I'm thinking of?
It's like a sprinkler park.
Well, we're also putting a amphitheater kind of deal out there. Putting some security cameras out there. To do that, you have to have internet. So the change order that we approved was to run fiber optic cable, C-Spire cable to those areas. You put security, connect them so we can have computers there, telephones, whatever we want, Wi-Fi, all that stuff to those 2 areas.
Well, and again, the only dissenting vote on those 2 changes was
and also
Alderman
just so, and I'm not trying to be, to correct you, but that is a complete different company than The Path. The Path is doing Kirkendall lighting, but the other 2 projects is being done by.
I thought it was the same guys that were standing up
Nicholas
there.
Constructions, who's doing those projects, and 2 different companies, but they were all together. They were kind of presented as a group, so I could.
And that's why I assumed he was the dissenting vote, is he was just making a point.
Well, I don't want to speak for Alderman Kitchens. He votes how he wants to vote, but I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think he may be voting because he feels like when you do a project, you put everything you need in there. If you don't put it in there, too bad.
And again, I haven't talked to him, but we are running at a deficit right now.
Yeah, we just hold on a second. Did we just not talk about that a second
I understand,
ago?
But from the perception,
did we just not talk about that?
We did, but from a perception, why are we spending money when we don't have money?
It's 2 different funds.
I get it. We don't need to rehash that, but I'm saying out of principle.
So just for example, so you got a checking account, right?
Sometimes.
When your wife doesn't spend it all, I got a checking account. So why does I spend money in my checking account affect your checking account? Because that's what you're comparing apples to apples to.
Well, if we're going to bring wives into it, my wife has a checking account,
but seriously,
and then we have a checking
Yeah.
account.
I got you. But what I'm saying is, you're saying this account has an issue. That means this account should have an issue, and they're two complete separate things.
I understand.
They're not connected at all. We got to get that out of everybody's head.
Well, and I do
And
have
also, on top of one thing, not only do we have a general fund, then we also get revenue from a motel tax that goes into the parks fund. That's a whole. So you're actually talking about three different accounts.
I got you. Well, fair enough, but I don't know. I try to read into why I think everybody's voting the way they're voting when there is.
Yeah, sure.
And so that's like I said. I haven't talked to Alderman Kitchens.
One thing,
don't
and
have
I'm
any
going to
idea.
say this on here real quick. In Hernando, for some reason, there's a group of people that want to be negative about everything. And certainly we make mistakes, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect or anybody's perfect, but we got to quit with all the negativity. There's a lot of positive things going on in our town that
Sure is.
we need to talk about it, not just, oh my gosh, they're spending $4,000 to run internet to the baseball concession stand. I mean, come on, man.
Well, I mean, I would assume in today's world that you need internet.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has internet now. You can get internet anywhere. You can get a Starlink.
But I think with social media and stuff, we sometimes we get stuck on like whoever this bar person is.
I knew we were going to circle back to bar.
Which is fine, but man, there's so much positive things. We're building a new Tractor Supply in town. We got a Jersey Mike's coming in town. There's a lot of positive things going on. Let's maybe just for a minute.
Got a new Mexican restaurant coming.
Got a new Mexican, but let's just, man, for 1 minute, talk about some of the positive things and not all the negative stuff all the time.
I agree. I love Hernando, born and raised here.
With my business I do now, I work in Tate County, but I do consulting work all over the state. And man, we are in pretty good shape compared to some of the places I travel on a regular basis. And that's just a fact.
Well, that's why people move here. I mean,
that's right.
It's why at one point, we were the 7th fastest growing county in the United States. I mean, we are a popular destination. So I did want to bring up one more thing.
What's that?
The middle school. And me and you've talked off air about this. You didn't know I was going to bring it up. But,
well, man, slick.
But because now that the old high school is now a middle school,
yes,
there is a massive, massive traffic problem on McInvale in the afternoons around 2:30, where the other day, the line of traffic, like there's got to be something where there's a deal made like with the schools and maybe one of those churches where people can park and wait for pickup line, because McInvale, which is a main thoroughfare in our city, becomes an absolute parking lot.
And hopefully in the future becomes even a bigger thoroughfare.
Yeah. Well, right now, between 2:30 and 3, it is an absolute parking lot. The other day, the traffic was backed up from the entrance to the school all the way to almost Cadence Bank at the corner of Byhalia and McInvale. And it was just sitting there because everybody was waiting to turn in. And so if you were stuck in that line, and I've noticed it a few times, and I don't know, that's not something that's been discussed. Me and you've talked about it a little bit, but I don't know. There's got to be some kind of solution. You can't, it's almost as bad as when the train stops in town, where the town just becomes a standstill.
Well, Brian, and you didn't, I'm not prepared to answer that question. I know we've talked about it, but you got two schools. The middle school is probably 1,000 kids. Which now the intermediate school is probably 600 kids or so.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said, because when it was the high school, most of those kids were driving themselves, and a lot of them were leaving, midday or things like that. And so it wasn't as big an issue as it is now. And it's something that's definitely, I'm not saying that's not me being critical. It's just me observing something that we need to address in the town, whether it's getting with some of the churches right there and going, hey, everybody park here until it's time to pick up, where traffic can still flow up and down McInvale.
Sure. So.
But that's about all I've got for this episode. Again, you can email me questions if there's something you want to know, or for me to ask Chad. You can do it anonymously. I've had a little bit of pushback from a couple of people that I say, when you email me, well, no, when I tell them when they email me, I want their name and phone number just so I can verify that they're not a barb, right? That they are an actual real person, but you will remain anonymous with me. And, hopefully we'll be coming back here in a couple of weeks, and we'll be discussing what we decide to do with Kirkendall Park lights and some other things.
Sounds good, man. Well, thank you for having a conversation with me. And I think we all invested in Hernando and love the city we live in. So
till next time, appreciate it, Chad. Have a good week.